I still remember the day my daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said, "You can't stay here anymore, Margaret. We can't take care of you." Those words cut deeper than any knife. I stood there in the doorway, holding my little bag of clothes, while my own son stood behind her, silent. He couldn't even look at me. I had raised him with my own two hands. I worked 3 jobs after his father died just to keep food on our table. And now, years later, I was being told I was a burden. That night, I slept on the porch, shivering, heartbroken, listening to the laughter from inside. I thought maybe it was a bad dream, that in the morning he'd open the door and say, "Come in, Mom." But the very next morning, there was a knock at the door. Not from him, but from a stranger, a man in a brown coat holding an envelope. "Mrs. Harris," he asked. "I've been sent to take you somewhere safe." Somewhere safe. At that moment, I didn't know that safe meant being left with people I'd never met. Strangers who smiled too politely and whispered too often when they thought I wasn't listening. That was the day everything changed. Before I go on, hi everyone, I'm Margaret, and this is my story. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of it. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? If you've ever felt abandoned or had to start over, share your story below. You never know who might find comfort in your words. When the man drove me to the countryside, the road grew quieter and emptier. The trees on both sides looked like dark arms closing in. I sat in the back seat, clutching that envelope like it was the only thing keeping me alive. After 2 hours, we stopped at a small white house with blue shutters and a garden full of wildflowers. A woman in her 50s opened the door. She had that kind of forced smile people wear when they don't really mean it. "Mrs. Harris," she said sweetly, "welcome home." Home. I didn't even know her name, and she called it home. Her husband came from the back, tall and quiet, his eyes cold. "You'll stay in the guest room," he said flatly. "We'll make sure you're comfortable." But something about his tone made me uneasy. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, too perfect. Every clock tick echoed like thunder in my chest. Around midnight, I heard whispers outside my door. I held my breath and leaned closer. "She doesn't know yet," the woman said. "She doesn't need to," the man replied. "Not yet." My stomach dropped. Didn't know what. The next morning, she made me breakfast, eggs and toast. She smiled, but her hands trembled when she handed me the plate. "Sleep well?" she asked. I lied and said yes. All day, I tried to be polite. I helped water the flowers and fold laundry. But I noticed something strange. Every time the mail came, they rushed to grab it before I could. Once, I caught a glimpse of a letter with my name on it, but it was quickly tucked away. That night, I looked out the window and saw the man digging in the backyard with a flashlight. My heart started pounding. Why would anyone dig that late at night? I told myself not to be paranoid. Maybe they were just kind people with secrets of their own. But as the days went by, I started noticing more. The phone line never worked. The front gate was always locked. And every time I asked when I could go back home, they changed the subject. One afternoon, while cleaning the living room, I found a small box hidden behind the bookshelf. It was dusty, but when I opened it, I froze. Inside were pictures of me. Old ones, from years ago, from places I didn't even remember. And in the corner of one photo was a little boy I didn't recognize. I heard footsteps and quickly put the box back. My hands shook so badly I dropped the picture. The woman walked in just as I picked it up. Her smile disappeared for a split second, replaced by something cold. "Where did you find that?" she asked sharply. "Oh, I was just cleaning," I said softly. She stared at me for a long moment, then forced a smile. "Some memories are better left untouched, dear." That night, I couldn't sleep again. The sound of the wind through the trees felt like voices whispering. I started to wonder, who were these people really? And why did they have photos of me from before I even met them? But that wasn't the worst part. Because the next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold, something that proved these strangers knew far more about my past than I did. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the thin curtains, but it didn't warm me. I sat at the small wooden table in the kitchen, staring at the cup of coffee the woman, her name was Linda, had placed in front of me. She smiled again, that same uneasy smile, and said, "Drink up, Mrs. Harris. You'll need your strength today." My fingers trembled as I lifted the cup. The night before kept replaying in my mind, her husband, Robert, digging in the backyard with a flashlight. And that hidden box of photos showing moments of my life that even I couldn't remember. Something wasn't right here. After breakfast, Linda asked me to help her clean the attic. She said it in a sweet tone, but I could tell she wanted to keep me busy. The attic smelled like dust and old secrets. As we moved boxes, I noticed a trunk with a rusty lock. It looked ancient, like it hadn't been touched in decades. "Don't bother with that one," she said quickly when she saw me looking at it. "It's just old junk from the previous owners." But when she left for a moment to get more boxes, I couldn't resist. I knelt down, heart pounding, and tugged at the latch. It snapped open with a crack. Inside was stacks of letters, yellowed, fragile, and tied with faded blue ribbon. I pulled one out carefully and began to read. My eyes widened. It was a letter from my mother. But my mother died when I was a child, before I could even read. How could Linda have her letters? My hands shook as I read the words written in her familiar looping handwriting. "Margaret, if you're reading this someday, it means they found you." I froze. They found you. What did that mean? Before I could read further, I heard footsteps creaking on the attic stairs. I quickly slipped the letter into my pocket. Linda came up, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "You shouldn't be up here alone," she said. "It's not safe with all this old junk." She smiled again, but there was a hint of warning behind it. We went back downstairs, and for the rest of the day, I felt her eyes on me every time I moved. That evening, while sitting in my room, I took out the letter again. My mother's words continued. "They will tell you they're helping you, but they're not. They have their reasons. You were taken from me once, and now they'll try again." My breath caught. Taken from her? My whole life, I believed my mother had died in a hospital fire when I was 6. That's what my father told me. But what if that wasn't true? As I tried to piece it together, I noticed something outside my window. Robert was in the backyard again, this time dragging a large tarp toward the same hole he'd been digging before. I strained to see what was underneath it. It looked like a wooden box, or maybe a chest. Then he looked up suddenly, straight toward my window. I ducked out of sight. My heart thudded so loudly I thought he could hear it. The next morning, Linda pretended everything was normal. She asked me to help bake bread, and for a while, I played along. I kneaded the dough, forcing a smile, waiting for the right moment. "Linda," I said softly, "how long have you and Robert lived here?" She didn't look up. "Oh, a long time," she said. "This house has been in Robert's family for generations. We've taken care of people before." Her words hung in the air, heavy and strange. Taken care of people before. That afternoon, I slipped away when they went into town. I had to see what was in that backyard hole. The dirt was still soft from the night before. I grabbed a small garden spade and started digging where Robert had been. Within minutes, I hit wood. My heart raced. I brushed away the dirt and revealed what looked like an old wooden chest. My fingers hesitated on the latch. What if it was something I didn't want to see? Still, I lifted it open and gasped. Inside were documents, photos, and newspaper clippings, all about me. Birth records, adoption papers, even an old photo of my mother holding me as a baby. One paper had bold letters across the top, "Missing child, Margaret Ellis, age 6. I felt the world spin. I wasn't crazy. My mother hadn't left me. I'd been taken. Suddenly, a voice came from behind me. "Looking for something, Margaret." It was Robert. His tone was cold, his expression unreadable. I froze, clutching the edge of the chest. I wanted to understand," I stammered. He sighed, stepping closer. "There are things you don't remember for a reason." My pulse raised. "What reason?" I asked. "You should go inside," he said softly, but there was steel in his voice. "It's getting dark." I walked back toward the house, trying to hide my fear. I knew then I couldn't stay another night. Whatever these people wanted, it wasn't kindness. I had to get out. But the gate was always locked, the phone disconnected, and the nearest town was miles away. Still, I had one thing now that they didn't expect, the truth. And I planned to use it. As I packed my small bag quietly that night, I looked one last time at the letter from my mother. Her final line burned into my mind: "The truth will set you free, but only if you're brave enough to face it." I folded it carefully, tucked it close to my heart, and whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, I'll be brave." But I didn't know, tomorrow would bring something far more shocking than I could ever imagine. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The air in the small house felt heavy, as if it knew what was about to happen. My heart was racing as I quietly packed my few things: my mother's letter, a change of clothes, and the small photograph I'd found in the chest. I planned to leave before Linda and Robert woke up. The dirt road outside led into the woods, and if I could just make it far enough, maybe I could find someone, anyone, to help me. But as I crept down the stairs, the floorboards betrayed me with a long, sharp creak. I froze. Then came a voice from the kitchen. "Going somewhere, Margaret?" It was Linda. She was standing by the table, her robe tied loosely, her face calm but her eyes cold. Robert appeared behind her, holding a cup of coffee like it was just another morning. My pulse thudded in my ears. I thought I'd take a walk," I said softly. Linda smiled that airy smile again. "At dawn? You're too old to be wandering off, dear." Her tone was sweet, but her meaning wasn't. I gripped the strap of my bag tightly. "You're lying to me," I said suddenly. "About who I am. About this house." I found the letters. The photos. The chest. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Robert sighed, setting down his cup. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said quietly. "It's better when people don't remember." My voice shook. "Remember what?" Linda looked at me with something between pity and frustration. What they did to you, Margaret. What we did to protect you. I didn't understand. Protect me from what? I demanded. Robert walked closer, his face darkened by shadow. From the truth, he said. You weren't supposed to grow up here. You were part of something bigger. Your mother didn't just lose you. You were taken because of what she knew. My knees felt weak. What are you talking about? He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured toward the door. Come with us, he said. There's something you need to see. Every instinct in me screamed no, but I followed, slowly, cautiously. They led me to the backyard, where the first light of dawn touched the trees. The wooden chest was still there, half buried where I'd left it. Robert knelt down and brushed away the dirt. Your mother wasn't who you think she was, he said. She worked for people who didn't want the truth out. When she tried to run, they used you to get to her. We were asked to keep you safe, hidden. I stared at him in disbelief. Safe? You locked me away. You lied to me. Linda stepped closer. Because if they found you again, you'd be gone for good. My head spun. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Their story, my memories, or the letter from my mother that said they were the ones who took me. Suddenly, the sound of tires crunching on gravel broke the tension. A car was pulling up to the gate. Robert turned sharply. Stay here, he ordered. But I didn't listen. When he went to open the gate, I saw my chance. I ran, not toward the road, but toward the woods behind the house. My breath came fast and sharp, my legs weak but determined. Branches scratched my arms as I pushed through the trees, clutching my bag tight against me. Behind me, I heard Linda shouting my name. I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, until I tripped over a root and fell hard into the dirt. For a moment, I lay there, trembling, gasping for air. Then I saw headlights through the trees, a car on the distant road. I stumbled toward it, waving frantically. A man stepped out, a stranger, kind-eyed and startled. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked. I could barely speak. "Please," I whispered. They're not who they say they are." He helped me into the car and drove me straight to the nearest police station. Hours later, I sat in a small, grey room, telling the officer everything. They sent a team to the house, but when they got there, it was empty. No Robert. No Linda. Just that old chest, left open in the yard. Inside it, they found more letters, not just from my mother, but from others. Other missing people. Other stories. The truth unraveled over the following weeks. My mother had been part of a whistleblower group decades ago, people who uncovered corruption in a company that handled orphan adoptions. When she disappeared, I'd been placed with guardians who were supposed to keep me hidden. But something went wrong. I was moved, forgotten, and erased from the system. When the officer handed me the final report, I didn't feel anger anymore. Just sadness. I'd lost so many years, so much truth. But I was free now, and I wasn't afraid of the past anymore. I sold what little I owned and bought a small cottage near the sea. That's where I live now. Sometimes I sit by the window with my granddaughter, your mother, and I tell her this story. I tell her about the lies, the secrets, and the strength it takes to face them. Because the truth is, life will try to bury you, just like they buried that chest. But if you dig deep enough, you'll find that every secret, every heartbreak, leads you back to who you really are. And as I look into your young, curious eyes. I know, the story didn't end with me. It began with courage, and it continues with you.